Having a disability shouldn't stop you from going to college and thriving. But when you're filling out those financial aid forms, do you have to report funds in a special needs trust or in an ABLE account? Could it hurt your chances of getting a loan or a grant? In this video, I'll break down exactly how these trusts and accounts affect college financial aid and show you how to protect your funding options. So let me preface this by saying that I'm not an expert when it comes to student loans. Please work with an expert if you're applying for colleges and you're helping your child to fill out the financial aid forms. But our clients do have children who are considering going to college, even when they're disabled. And they want to know which of the student's assets and which of the parent's assets will be considered for student aid. So when somebody applies for financial aid for college, they need to fill out a free application for Federal Student Aid, or a FAFSA form. In the form, the student has to disclose their own assets as well as the assets of their family. The student usually needs to report assets that they have access to as their own assets. So, for example, if parents have a revocable trust, usually that would be considered as part of the family share of the student's financial aid calculation. The student doesn't have access to it, so it wouldn't be considered as part of the student share. Now, if a trust has been set up for you, like a special needs trust, but it hasn't been funded yet, and there's no assets held in it, usually that trust doesn't need to be reported. And keep in mind that special needs trusts usually aren't funded until parents die. And at that point, their money goes from the revocable trust to the special needs trust. So as long as the special needs trust remains unfunded, whether it's a standalone document or a testamentary special needs trust, part of the parent's revocable trust, there's nothing to report. But the U.S. Department of Education uses different rules when it comes to a funded special needs trust. Under the Federal Student Aid Handbook of 2024 to 2025, this is what it says. Trust funds are considered an asset of the named beneficiary of the trust, even if the beneficiary's access to the trust is restricted. If the settlor of the trust has voluntarily placed restrictions on its use, then the beneficiary should report its present value as an asset. If a trust has been restricted by court order, however, the beneficiary should not report it. So what does that mean? That means if a special needs trust has been funded for the beneficiary, even if the beneficiary has no access to it, even if they're not acting as trustee, they can't revoke or amend the trust, which is usually the way a special needs trust is set up, it's still considered an asset of the student, which is really a bummer.
Hello, did you know that my mom helps people all the way through the state of California from top to bottom? Go give her a call.
Now you notice that there's an exception to that for trusts created under court order. That usually happens when someone sets up a special needs trust, for example, under a personal injury settlement, and they have to go through court. So in that case, if the court approved the trust terms that restricted the special needs trust assets, the student can disregard those assets on the application. So yes, a disabled applicant still needs to disclose special needs trust funds on their FAFSA form, and also the assets in their first-party special needs trust if it was created outside the court process, like a seed trust. This is true even if the special needs trust is irrevocable and a disabled child has no access to the funds. Yes, I think this is unfair, but that's the rule. Now there are some excludable assets for FAFSA applications, and one of them is an ABLE account. Yay! So the FAFSA instructions say, an ABLE account is a tax-advantaged savings account for a disabled person and their family. Its value does not count as an asset on the FAFSA form. So, money in an ABLE account does not count as the student's asset, and it doesn't count as the parent's asset. So it's really nice, it's an exception. Also, possessions like a car for personal use, clothes, furniture, those also don't count as assets on a FAFSA form. What about a 529 college savings plan? Well, it depends if the student is considered independent or not. If the student is independent and the account is owned by the student, it's reportable as a student asset. If the student is dependent, on the other hand, is a dependent of the parents and is also the beneficiary of the 529 plan, but the account is owned by a parent, it's considered a family asset, not a student asset. So why do we care if things are calculated as a student asset versus a family asset? Well, basically it's calculated differently on the FAFSA form. and more weight is given to the student asset than to the family asset. Now, if you have a neurotypical child who's applying for college, and they have a sibling with a funded special needs trust, usually the special needs trust funds would not be considered family assets, since the special needs trust can only be used for the person with special needs. Although keep in mind, if a special needs trust is drafted so that it can benefit the neurotypical child as well as the special needs child, then it would likely be considered a family asset and would need to be reported. So I hope that brings some illumination into how to fill out FAFSA forms. Your child might still need a lot of support, and you should know what type of estate planning they might need as they go off to college. I have a video called Planning for Children Not Yet Launched, and I encourage you to watch that.
Did you know that my mom has a monthly newsletter? Subscribe by clicking below.